We're now going to talk about the colleague perspective. We're going to start on disciplinary action. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine, especially with neurodiverse people there. There's a distinct difference, of course, between performance and capability, although they are linked. A neurodiverse colleague may be capable of that role, but with reasonable adjustments, their performance and inclusivity will be enhanced, their well-being too. Disciplinary action usually occurs in error and when the organisation doesn't understand the condition and how to help, and when they solely look at capability. Now, before consideration of any disciplinary action, a full review of the colleague and the condition should be carried out, as well as the workload, the environment, by a neurodiversity specialist who will ensure that the correct adjustments are being applied and ensure that any missing are also applied. Only then should capability and disciplinary be explored. Now, moving on to training and development. Your colleagues all learn in different ways. So while some prefer paper versions, others will learn more effectively in a different format, such as video, and some learn more efficiently whilst carrying out the task, and some with audio too. Now, additional training may be required, such as a refresher, and also additional time should be given to complete any training tasks. Now, moving on to performance reviews. Everybody, remember, has their own 100%, and this needs to be written into the review. The neurodiverse colleagues needs to be assessed objectively, not subjectively, by a person who fully understands that colleague's condition and its presentation. Now, moving on to workload and approaches to tasks, it's extremely important that as long as the goal is reached, you are open and flexible to different ways of working. Many neurodiverse colleagues will bring many strategies to improve such ways, and many more efficient too. We're always overcoming our difficulties, so it's inbuilt within us to make things better and easier for all. So what reasonable adjustments then? You need to have a policy in place to start with, a reasonable adjustment policy. Now, if you don't implement a policy, you're not going to know what to do. It needs to be measurable. Don't forget to revisit on a regular basis to make sure it's working at its best, and obviously amend if it's not. Always offer reasonable adjustments within recruitment applications, training, websites, wherever your colleagues communicate or read information with and from you. Now, without such a policy and agreed procedures, then you're at greater risk of discriminating. So the policy should be able to answer a colleague's question and give them confidence and the backing from your organisation about reasonable adjustments. Now, the policy should help with when do you ask? Why do you ask? What do you do with that information? Also, how do you know that the adjustments are working? And also, has the detriment been removed and the colleague now achieved equal opportunity? Now, moving on to training and development. Briefly touched on it, but refresher training may be needed, but also certain skills in order to progress, in order to access that equal opportunity of progression and development. Always remind your neurodiverse colleagues on a regular basis that opportunities are available to them, and help them overcome that barrier to progression. Processes and expectations are key too. Now, for example, people with autism spectrum disorder work very well with routines, but where a change is required, even though we're flexible, we need plenty of notice. Otherwise, it causes us complete overload, for a lot of distress. Now, moving on to communication. Some of the neurodivergent conditions present as a difficulty with answering off the cuff, even though we know the answer. So before a meeting, allow that person to see the questions in plenty of time so that it allows them to respond or allow them to follow on later. Now, in response to tasks and workload, of course, the workload needs to be at a safe level for the well-being of your colleague. And of course, the approach to tasks should aim to counterbalance a presentation of a particular condition. For example, with ADHD, because of the working memory, it's better to work in print and also have a larger screen. And also sometimes a colleague just on nearby can help with getting started on a project. Okay, what about employment best practice regards to neurodiversity? Now, all your colleagues, they deserve opportunities, encouragement and support to realise their potential. That's all colleagues. Now, opportunity, what do I mean by that? That's being offered the job and also any career progression. Now, encouragement is regular, objective, constructive feedback to learn from negative as well as the positive. Not forgetting support as well. This could be the provision of a coach or whether that's a colleague or somebody like myself, and also training to be able to do their job and fully realise their potential. Let's not forget, a diversity of cognitive approaches is a source of great strength and value within a genuinely inclusive workplace and should be actively encouraged at all times. All reasonable steps must be taken to ensure that policies, practices, culture don't discriminate against neurodivergent colleagues. Now, policy, what do I mean? That's what an employee can be legally held accountable for, such as health and safety. Now, practice, whilst not legally held liable for, unless it's written within the contract, of course, it's the certain way that things are done within the organisation, such as how often emails are responded to or other minor things, or could be more of a major thing. Now, the culture is how your colleagues interact with each other, your customers, and the organisation. Now, neurodivergent people don't always have a formal diagnosis, but many adults know they have a condition but have not sought or they are struggling to obtain a formal diagnosis. And that's because of waiting lists and NHS funding priorities. Make sure you learn about the person and find out how best to work together. It's amazing how much a relaxed conversation can reveal. Just sit down, have a cup of tea, glass of orange, and have a chat. Be accepting that those without a formal letter of diagnosis that colleague will still need the same requirement of reasonable adjustments. Now, moving on to disclosure, this may be limited by a person's experience of discrimination and stigma in wider society, and their disclosure will be based upon trust. So a tailored approach is key. Not everyone wants to disclose. Early disclosure needs to be encouraged, obviously, within a genuine and supportive environment, because it will reduce any potential friction and it enhances the employee's well-being, because it's off one's chest. And not forgetting as well, once it's off your chest, this disclosure means you're no longer having to explain or apologise for your condition. This encourages a great understanding and has a positive impact on productivity and the team. Work should be done to eliminate barriers and prejudice that neurodivergent people face in or associated with the workplace. That includes sensory matters, the commute, plan offices, the layout of the workstation, and the flow of tasks and routines. Now, with internal communication, including training programs and testing requirements, and also newsletters, etc., these must be acceptable and accessible for your neurodivergent colleagues. This would include print, videos, and audio, and online, including PDF. Make sure you raise awareness of neurodiversity in your workplace. so that all concerned can help with that inclusion, as well as enhancing the performance of the team. But once again, have a cup of tea, talk to that neurodivergent colleague, learn from them. They have lots to offer, whether it be an understanding of their condition or new ways, better ways of working. And don't forget that coaching by a colleague or somebody, a contract to come in, such as myself or somebody else, will improve their ways of working. And a lot of these reasonable adjustments are free, many are low cost. It's just a matter of adaptation, and many may be covered by the DWP Access to Work scheme,